Hello and welcome back to another episode of Charla Football. I'm your host as always, Gerardo Jerry Tavares, accompanied by Tomas and Jonathan today. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good, man. Happy to be back on the pod after a long 2 weeks of football and excited to get this one started.
Tomas, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, bro. Just came back from London, like not even 5 days ago, but here, present and ready.
Yeah, I was going to mention that I know it's been like 2 weeks since we recorded, and that's only because we were out at Wembley watching the Champions League final between Borussia Dortmund and Real Madrid. So obviously we had the chance to go out there, and I mean, we'd be stupid to not take it. So spent some time out there, and I mean, we had a really small hotel room. We could have recorded while we were out there, but I just thought I'd rather just wait till we're in our own studio over here and be more comfortable and, put actual more effort into it versus being stuck in a little hotel room and kind of half-assing it. But First things first, make sure to follow us on all social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all that stuff. Support your small creators because together we're going to make it big. We also teamed up with a friend of mine. His name's Aaron. He started his own page called Azteca Zone. So if you guys can, make sure to follow there. It's going to be all Selección Mexicana talk. And on that note, we're going to be talking about La Selección Mexicana today. We're going to be talking about the Copa America. We're going to be talking about the friendlies. And yeah, let's just get right into it. So first things first, we're going to talk about the 3 friendlies that went down for Mexico over the past week or so. So we had the friendly against Bolivia, against Uruguay, and then Brazil. So we're going to give our thoughts, our diagnosis, and then see how that's going to play out in the Copa America moving forward. So let's start off with that Mexico versus Bolivia game. So I know a lot of people kind of like that match for the reason that there was a lot of new faces introduced into the team. We saw the likes of Jordan Carrillo get minutes, Efrain Alvarez, Montano, Fidel Ambris, just a lot of different faces that we feel like should be in the Copa America moving forward. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I know they were kind of in preparation for the Maurice Revelo tournament that's actually currently going down. So I think most of these kids are going to be there, but it'd be nice to have them come down for the Copa America if possible. I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts first on the game and then on the new faces. And I wanted to see who you guys would bring from like the solid this like U23 squad. Who would you take to the Copa America if you could?
Personally, I would take the 3 midfielders. I'd take Montaño, Ambris, and Carrillo just because I feel that they have what it takes. And seeing that we lack a holding mid in Luis Romo and Charlie Rodriguez somehow starting, I mean, Jordan Carrillo could definitely play at least as well as Charlie Rodriguez because Charlie Rodriguez is a part to who he is in playing in Liga MX. So Jordan Carrillo could definitely complete that. And Fidel Ambris is just, he could definitely fill in Luis Romo's spot where he's not really being as good as he once was, which was really just for like a 3-month period in the Olympic squad.
Mm-hmm.
And then Montaño is just really a sub that he comes in with energy. And I mean, if you see the Bolivia game, he's pressing every ball. He has the heart and want to be here for La Selección. And that's the reason I would take these 3 players.
What about you, Jonathan? If you could bring someone, at least for the Copa America, one player that you can at least take like out of these players, like who would you bring if you can?
I would agree with Tomas. I mean, we've all seen Charlie Rodriguez the past few years hasn't really delivered what we really expected from him, both club and country level. It brings that kind of question to a lot of fans. Why is he still getting called up all these years later? Of course, he has his special moments with Cruz Azul, but it's not the same when he's at the national level. And it just seems like he's getting these chances over and over again. So that would definitely be a good replacement. Also, another player that we all saw who scored the eventual game winner was Alvarez. We saw him shining back in his time at LA Galaxy when he was playing with Zlatan. Now he's in Tijuana, not getting as much coverage as he used to, but he still is that solid player as we can see.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like a lot of the attacking options from Mexico are taken already, but it would be nice to see a player like him come and help us out, whether it's him playing in Antuna's spot, which arguably could be up for contention since he's not always delivering as well, which we had talked about in the last few pods. But if I had to choose one player, I would also choose Carrillo for that midfield position, which is where we lack a little bit more. Up top, we see a lot of like formation changes. We'll just see back and forth, but that midfield is always all over the place. We never know who's going to start this game, next game. It's always just a conversation of a mix-up, so definitely Carrillo.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of memes of people talking about that the fact that we have Romo and Charlie still starting. And I think they've combined. I think Charlie Rodriguez has played over 40 matches for the Selección Mexicana, and I think Luis Romo is between the same thing. And I mean, I can't think of a single moment in this past few years when I've watched them where they've really contributed to something positive to the team. Neither negative, but it's like you want players to who are going to play for La Selección to have an impact, And if you're not going to if these guys aren't performing, then bring someone younger, bring someone that's fresh, that's hungry, that doesn't feel as comfortable. Because I'm sure these guys are like, well, I could play okay and I'll still get called up because there's no real competition. But push some competition, bring out the likes of Carrillo, Montano, Ambriz, Alvarez, like people that are hungry to get that limelight, that want to be for like starting at the Copa America, that want to be at the World Cup in 2026. And I think these kids definitely deserve it. Now, going to the game specifically, it was just a 1-0 win. And while it is a win, and I'll take it, I think when you're coming up against the worst CONMEBOL team in Bolivia and probably one of the worst teams at the Copa America in general, out of CONCACAF and out of CONMEBOL, I think it should have been a lot better. And I understand that you're playing with a whole new squad that don't have a lot of connection and chemistry together, and they're a bunch of kids versus Bolivia. I'm sure we're starting with or taking it a little bit more serious in preparation for the Copa America. I feel like it should be a little better, but that's just my thoughts. I don't know what you guys think.
No, I think that's a perfect result. I mean, they're U23 players. Really, the only player older than 23 is Alexis Peña, and really, he's never really seen a selección call-up like that, and there's just no reason that you would expect more from them because they haven't been playing together over like a U23 or U18 or U19 where they really played well with each other. And again, they're playing the worst CONMEBOL side, yes, but this is a Bolivia team that's playing their like 4 of their 8 starter players who are competing versus Brazil, versus Uruguay, versus Argentina. So if these players are chosen for Bolivia to play them and they lose, I mean, it just says that the U23s have something that we really need to look into because they're really solid. I mean, to beat Bolivia 1-0 when these players are 9 to 10 years older than you, like 9 to 10 years more of experience. And I mean, Bolivia wasn't that bad of a team. It's just that these kids have so much more energy and they defend better. They win the scrappy balls in the midfield, and they just had a lot more energy and want, which is something that we don't see in the A team. And I just don't know how you would expect it more from these because they are U23 players. On paper, Bolivia should have won this game 2-3-0. It doesn't matter that they're the worst CONMEBOL side. They have much more experience than them. They played 4 starters right here. I mean, there's no starters from the Mexican team. So what else could you ask for?
What about you, Jonathan? What are you feeling?
No, I definitely agree with his statement. We saw a bunch of players that many neutral fans who don't really tune into all the games or into like the club level games don't know how much of these faces. Everybody's probably saw this game and turned it off. Like, what? Like, who even are these players? Who is this squad playing? Let me just turn it off. I'll turn into the next game. Which we knew a lot of people were like that. And like Tomas said, Bolivia, they had players who have been playing with their country for a long time. But the difference is Mexico having that weight on that jersey, knowing that you're playing for your team, makes you go out there with that drive. The fact that you're backed up by your whole nation, people that, people that don't even know who I exist are going to tune into this game. They all see it as a potential show out, like as for like James Rodriguez 2014. Not many people knew about him before that World Cup. He got the call up and he shined out. He got that move to Madrid, became a star player. They all have that in their mind. We want to become the next big thing Mexico has to offer. We're not in the best moment right now as a team. Why not go out there individually and make the best version of ourselves? Obviously, that was a good call by our coach to, let them go experience it for once. Even if it's a team like Bolivia, they're still playing at the national level.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And I love that, the fact that they're going to get their chance to go out there and shine, even though they're all U23 players, except like maybe 2 of them. They still have their chance to go out there and shine. And hopefully in the future, we see some of these players being formal players in the squad, rotational starters, just as long as they're there, showing up. That's all that matters, man.
It would be nice to have them in the Copa America at least. I don't know what the probabilities with that. I know that Jimmy Lozano took it was like a preliminary roster of like 30, 31 players. Yeah. I don't know if he's going to change it up now that the Copa America is just around the corner. But going back to what you were kind of touching on, the bad moment that Mexico was kind of going through, we really saw that being exposed when they played against Uruguay. That game was horrendous. Probably one of the worst matches I've seen since Chile 7-0. The way they just fell apart, and the way that they just gave up, and we're lucky that Uruguay didn't stick like a few more after the 4th because they honestly, they could have.
You could definitely see it when they were playing. Uruguay felt like as if, okay, we're up 3-0. Even after the game, the coach was it Bielsa. He came out said, I don't know why they took it as a light game. We're a team who's potentially going to go for the whole thing. Why are you not playing our best players against us? We're going to come out with all the force that we have, and beat you guys. Whether it's 4-0, 5-0, we're going to go out there and do our thing. And obviously, we saw the likes of Nunez, who, even though at a club level is not doing the best, as a country, it's a whole different thing. It's a whole different situation. Mexico obviously didn't take that into consideration. Like you said, it was a horrible game. We all saw what happened from the very beginning to the end. It looked like Uruguay was just toying with us, just passing around, doing whatever they wanted to do. And the goals that they found were all their basic goals that we score out, playing Sunday League, just pass, tap in, go. Like classic Man City goals. That's all we were seeing against this Mexico team.
Right, tell us how you feel after that Uruguay game. How did you feel?
I'm not even surprised. I mean, you were telling me, I remember at the hotel and you were telling me, oh, you're not going to watch the game. And I was just like, they're going to lose. And it's not because Uruguay from the past 6 months to now, they got extremely better, which they did. But I don't know if you remember, but prior to the World Cup, Mexico played Uruguay versus A team, and they lost 3-0. And now they come out with an alternative team where they're playing, yes, young players, good players, but these players have not played together.
Mhm.
Like Ala Rangel and Victor Guzman, they were out of sync when they were trying to pass out the back. And the most important thing when building out the back, you need your goalie and your center backs to be in sync. Like you have to know what you're gonna do when to check your shoulders or what your goalie is going to be, because the simple things add up. And clearly that added up. I mean, Ala Rangel, he has one of the highest save rates in Liga MX, so he couldn't really do anything much rather than watch the ball go into the net.
Yeah,
Because at that point, when there's a shot on goal, it's not really the goalie's mistake. It's really just the defender's mistake. I
yeah.
get it.
I was gonna say,
They stole the ball from him, but they what else can he do?
yeah, I feel like there are a lot of people vilifying Tara Rangel. I think it could be just because he's from Chivas or because he's in goal and they need a scapegoat. But I mean, when are they going to look at the defenders that he put out? The lineup that he put out, like Jonathan mentioned, they didn't put out their best squad, and even Marcelo Bielsa noticed it. Like, why wouldn't you play with your best squad? Why are you just treating it like it's an experiment? Like, yes, I understand where Jimmy's coming from, where you want to see other players, but when you're coming up against like the likes of Uruguay and Brazil, you still want to play your best players. Like maybe a 1 or 2 experiments, but not a whole squad, not a whole rotation.
These experiments should have happened in the preparation for the Nations League, not the preparation for the Copa America.
Completely agreed.
Like when we played Ghana, was it Ghana or was it?
We played Ghana. Yeah, we did play Ghana.
Ghana, when we played Australia. This is where you needed to put those players in to see what they're made of. How are you going to start a 23-year-old goalkeeper? Because goalkeepers usually tend to play for long periods of time. So how are you going to play him at 23 versus Uruguay, the team that comes in the hottest form right now in the world? I mean, they just came off of beating Argentina. They came off beating Brazil. They did lose to Ecuador, but still they beat Argentina and Brazil. It's crazy that you would start a young keeper versus them, like for what, to kill his morale. There's no reason you should have done that in my eyes, or at least put your starting center backs in so it's not as bad. And then there's a lot of people saying that the A team would have performed better, that we were missing a lot of players, but quite frankly, they wouldn't have. What's performing better? That they would have lost by 2. They would have lost by 3. Is that what we call better?
No, I agree with his statement, because at the end of the day, we're facing the likes of Bentancur, Nunez, and Rodriguez, who are lethal attack force. All 3 players playing for, big teams. Rodriguez, we just saw in the final against America the whole season. With America, he's been balling out from his time here in the States. And why would you not put your best center backs? Wouldn't you want them facing better attacks? They get, of course, even better over time, more chemistry. But he goes and plays his B team. And just like Tomas said, even if they would have put those players, maybe we would have lost by 2 or 1 less. But that's what matters at the end of the day. We can see which players are really shining at the big league, and not just, okay, these guys are not going to play against the big teams in the Copa America anyways. Like, how is that going to make sense? Okay, yeah. And how are the 18 players going to play? It was an idiotic choice by Jimmy Lozano. It makes sense, like you said, but it really doesn't at the same time.
So would you guys agree with this statement that at least the only positive that we could take out is that it happened and now they can learn from it?
That's probably the only positive. There's no way that any of that could be taken as a positive, because we know the level of Uruguay. and we knew the type of players that Jimmy Lozano would have to play if he wanted to compete, and it definitely wasn't the players I put in. Other than Alvarado, who actually showed glimmers of hope for the selección with 2 shots on goal, and one that was nearly hitting the crossbar and tying the game. And maybe I think just Alvarado, and I don't know any other player. Maybe Arteaga, because Arteaga couldn't really do much. But that for me, just Alvarado. Alvarado is the only player that I'd play in the A team over Antuna, because he's actually a creative forward that can link up with Santi Jimenez.
He's not afraid to take those shots either, just like that crossbar you mentioned.
Yeah, he takes his chances, and he knows when to create as well.
He doesn't think about it, doesn't think twice, and that's the difference you get between some player like him, who's a little bit more creative, a little bit more confident on the ball. Antuna, there's no denying that he is a good player, but he's just very inconsistent. And Piojo Alvarado is probably one of the most consistent players this season in Liga MX. There's no doubt.
The thing for me, if you want to play Antuna, that's fine, but take out Charlie. Put Alvarado in for Charlie, because Alvarado did use that kind of function playing as a 10 for Chivas this season, and he did pretty well, got him to the semifinals with a team that really didn't have much going forward, at least for the 3 forwards and the attacking mid.
Yeah, at least here with the Selección Mexicana, we have a little bit more of a threat with Jimenez, with Quiñones.
Yeah, I mean, imagine like you have Alvarado taking mid-range shots and being able to give those through balls to Santi Jimenez being able to get those rebounds and those on the end of those through balls. It'd be so much better than what we have right now with Charlie Rodriguez, who's our creative midfielder, but doesn't even know what to create means. He's just passing back or playing wall passes with Romo. I don't know, playing tag, hopscotch. I don't know. They're never even near each other.
Not playing real football, I'll tell you that. But so those are the main takeaways from the Uruguay game. Now, this game just happened yesterday. Brazil was also a fiery test, a game that I think a lot of people did not have hope for, not even myself. I did not have high hopes. I think they definitely exceeded my expectation. I didn't expect us to score 2 goals, because I think there was a lot of talk that Brazil were going to start with their most competitive lineup, and then the day of, that was completely eradicated. They came out kind of with the B team pretty much, but even their B team has a lot of quality. You see all these players, they're playing in the best, either a handful are playing the Brazilian league, which is one of the best South American leagues in the world, and then the rest of them are playing like in mid-table to top 4 contending teams in abroad in Europe. And in the first minute, they create literally the first 20 seconds, Brazil were able to create a chance. And then like 5 minutes later, they score the first goal, and you're just thinking like, oh shit, like here we go again. It's Uruguay all over again. We're going to get exposed. It's going to be another 4-0. I think the positive that you can take away from this, starting from the lineup, is that he actually took it a little bit serious. I think there is some things that could have been fixed up, like we were talked about already. Romo and Rodriguez starting the midfield. I don't think they should be starting in the midfield at all. Like, if you want to bring them on as subs, that's fine, whatever. But Edson Alvarez should have been starting. Orbelín Pineda should have been starting. Piojo Alvarado should have been starting. At least those kind of players.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, why is Charlie Rodriguez starting? Why is Luis Romo starting? They don't complete not even one function. The thing with the center is that they have they're 2 function. They're a position that has to you're a double functioning position. You have to attack and you have to defend. Charlie can't even attack nor defend. Luis Romo doesn't even know how to hold the ball for like going forward. He defends all right. He gets some scrappy balls, but he loses most of them in the midfield. I mean, Chavez is okay, and then you have Israel Reyes, which he's good, but he's naturally a center back. Why didn't you just call up your 2 best right backs from Liga MX? Now you're scrapping, making up positions, which is just, I mean, why? You have a better center back. I mean, you have a better right back in the Liga MX. You just don't call him up because of something petty that happened between you and the Olympics. It's just.
What about you, Jonathan? You're going to say something.
Well, I was going to touch up on that first. Back to before Tomás was saying how they have players from mid-table teams. How you were saying, for example, Andreas Pereira, who was on the score the goal. He's playing for Fulham, who essentially is a mid-table team in the Premier League. But it just shows you levels that they have players. They're like France. They could build 3 different squads with their team and still perform at a certain level. And unfortunately for Mexico, that they become a team where it's okay to experiment against them. Let's go ahead and charter a B team and see how things go eventually, which they did. Brought on their star players maybe at the 70th minute. Mexico has become a team, unfortunately for them, who teams can experiment against. And it's just not any teams. It's a team like Brazil. As I was saying, they could have enough to make an A squad and a B team. And we saw a mix of those two against Mexico. And just like Jerry said, within the first minute or two, they're already creating chances. Mexico already looked very vulnerable in the back, and just the team as a whole. What do you guys think about that? At the beginning of the game, they're just easy just to get through.
Yeah, I was honestly scared. Like after the first 30 seconds, when they almost scored that first one, where Martinelli almost got like to the end of it, I was like, "Oh shit, here we go again." And then they got that first goal in the 5th minute, and I just thought it was going to keep going. I think the only positive to take away from it was that when we did receive early in the first half, there was like a shift in mentality, or just like more of a seriousness. Like they really like dug deep and like, okay, we're not letting this shit happen again. So you saw a little bit of experience kind of like come in, but that's just would be my positive takeaway, at least from the first half.
I feel like there was no positive takes because you shouldn't go down 1-0 to a Brazil B team under 10 minutes. It's just you're gonna get chewed away in any serious competition, and which really just sums up the selección, the federation, because the Mexican Federation is not a serious federation. I mean, in 3 years, the Baseball Federation of Mexico got to work, and they made it to a 3rd place appearance in the World Baseball Classic. So 3 years of serious work, they got it to 3rd place in the sport that they're not the best in, and the sport that everybody watches in Mexico. They can't make it like to even a 3rd place in a Copa America, which isn't even like a World Cup. It's a Copa America where you've been to the final before, where you've been so close to winning before, and you can't even make it to a 3rd place.
I think now there's just like less expectation because we know how the federation is. We know that there is also maybe not a lack of talent, but just when it comes to like a managerial kind of viewpoint, like there's no one that can really get us out of the mud unless you go abroad and get someone like a Pep Guardiola or Jose Mourinho or Marcelo Bielsa, someone that has like experience, has been there, done that. But I mean, off of the player pool also that we have, I mean, we also don't have the best players in the world compared to, I guess, years prior. We have a little bit more of a little bit more talent. Now we're kind of relying on that hard work, but even then, we're not even showing that.
Yeah, that's all we ask. That's all I ask for, at least, because I know we don't have the best players in the world. Like we've never had the best players in the world, but we've always been able to compete versus South American teams up until the past 10 years. From
I say like before, yeah, like a little bit before 2080.
From 1980 up until 2010, we've been able to compete versus South American teams. All of a sudden, there's a shift where we're so subpar to them. We're even and I've said this before, Mexico got worse. The U.S. didn't get better. Mexico got worse, which really showed you on that result with Colombia versus U.S., where yeah. So continuing on that, it's just that South America's had a jump in talent. I mean, the whole world has. Japan, everybody has gotten better at football except for CONCACAF. It's like now we're the worst team because Asia's, I mean, much better than us, especially in the developmental factor. I know the US works a lot in development and they're getting there, but they don't have the team that they think that they have yet. And the thing is that you're competing against Mexico when in the 2000s to 2010s, it was a declining Mexico. Like you're competing against them, you finally beat them, and then you just see the reality that Mexico's just gotten worse, and everybody else in the world has just gotten better because of the development and the players that you have. I mean, and it just comes down to want. I mean, Colombia really just wanted to beat the US because that's how South Americans are. They come out and play hungry. It's not a lot of math to it.
A lot of, and that's, I mean, I'm glad that they played these friendlies. Even if they did get smacked up, it's just the perfect way to learn, because that's the kind of shit that you're going to be put up against in the Copa America, because Venezuela is not a team to take lightly. Ecuador is not a team to take lightly in Mexico's case. Even Jamaica, they gave the U.S. a run for their money up until like the last minute of the game when U.S. tied it, and then they went to extra time and then won the game in the Gold Cup. So on that note, we're just going to talk about the Copa America in general. So that's kind of closes up the whole Mexico segment. Now, moving forward to the Copa America, I want to talk about who do you guys think are the favorites to win? Who do you guys think are going to be the disappointments of the tournament? And then just one like surprise or dark horse that you guys have for the tournament. So Just go like this. Jonathan, you start first. Who do you think is going to be your favorite? Who's the favorite to win the tournament, honestly?
The favorite, I just got to go with Brazil. Everyone's saying Argentina, but Brazil definitely is doing better individually. In my opinion, once again, we're seeing Vini, Rodrigo, players up top who are doing phenomenal for their clubs. Of course, the past Copa Americas, we haven't seen them do the best, even though they went to the final. Unfortunately, they lost that, but that's a whole different squad from what they had back then. And what was the second one? The dark horse, right? Disappointment.
Disappointment.
I'm going to have to choose Mexico. We all know. We just talked about the whole thing. I don't really got to get into that. Touch too much upon that. But that's going to be my disappointment. Although the fans already, they know they're going to disappoint. I'm just going to choose them. And the dark horse that I like is Ecuador. We were speaking on this privately a little bit before, how they have up-and-coming players. We all know Caicedo. Kendrick Pires was another Chelsea upcoming player. Estupiñán. The defender from Vincapié, that's his name, from Leverkusen, who's had an amazing season. We all know about Leverkusen. They have a pretty strong squad, nothing to mess around with. I know they lost to Italy 2-0. That's a whole different conversation. They're going to be in the Copa America, and I think Ecuador is definitely going to be a team to look out for.
What about you, Tomas? I know you're shaking your head on his favorites take. So what do you think?
I mean, I think Uruguay, because Uruguay beat Brazil and Argentina, and I feel like the teams that they're going to see in semifinals are probably Brazil. Well, not Brazil because they're in the same group, but probably Argentina, then Brazil, or vice versa. And I just think that Uruguay are the favorites because they were able to prove themselves versus Argentina and Brazil. And then they just come up with these. They're just so good on the counter. They're just so good on the counter. They're so poised. I mean, Uruguay only had 4 shots on goal versus Mexico, and 4 of them went into the net.
Yeah, very consistent.
They didn't really risk anything, and they're physically fit. They run towards every ball. They win the scrappy balls in the midfield. I mean, they beat Argentina at that, where Argentina is known for winning those scrappy balls in the midfield and fighting hard. Uruguay beat them at their own game. You know, they didn't play a different style. They played them toe to toe, and they beat Argentina.
Did they beat them in Argentina too?
No, they beat them at Uruguay. But they do the same thing to Brazil. They beat Brazil toe to toe. They're just not really afraid of anybody. And I feel like a fearless team like Uruguay, who's prepared mentally, can beat anybody. And also with this whole this development that Marcelo Bielsa has, where he has trainers, psychologists. I mean, Uruguay doesn't have a lot of money, but he's making every penny count towards these players and developing even better players. I mean, it doesn't matter what league you play for. Once you're on the selección de Uruguay, you're all of a sudden you're just one of the best players in the world. And you see that with Brian Rodriguez from America, where he's a bench player at America, and over here in Uruguay, he looks like he's a fucking starting left winger for Inter Milan or something. And it's just the mentality that these Uruguayos have that Marcelo Bielsa has brought with his development. So for me, they're by far the favorites. And if they don't win, it's a fracaso because they beat these players in the World Cup qualifiers, where it counts as well, maybe even more in a sense because the World Cup is the biggest trophy to receive. So for me, it's by far Uruguay. The disappointment for me is the U.S. because I'm not gonna say Mexico because for Mexico we already expect them to get knocked out in quarters or in the group stage. We already know it's gonna be a failure. We expect them to do bad. If they make it to a semifinal, tell me, wouldn't you be happy?
I'd be excited. Yeah, probably.
And the disappointment for me would be if they made it to a semifinal and we're like, they should be there, but they like end up in quarters or group stage and. Well, I'm expecting them to end up in quarters or group stage by the way that they're playing, by the way that they perform, by the situation with the Federación. It's just they have to be in second place. I mean, they have to finish badly because they don't have anything, really. They don't have anything. So for me, the disappointment is the U.S. because they believe that that they've developed better, that they're this team that plays so much better than they have in the past years, that all of our players are in Europe now, and now we're going to be able to compete versus everybody. It's not like that. And Uruguay shows you that because they have players in Liga MX who compete, who are able to outrun you, outpace you. They're able to beat you to every ball. They want it more than you do, and that's what Colombia showed them, that they want it more than they. And it doesn't matter that these players play in Liverpool or in Colo-Colo. They don't care. They're going to come and beat you like Colombia did. And I just feel like every team in South America is that. So I don't see the U.S. being able to compete with South America at least. And my dark horse is Panama because I do believe that they're going to do better than people think that they are because they defend well. I'm not saying they're going to advance. But I'm saying that they're going to be able to compete better versus Uruguay. They're going to compete better versus the U.S. That they're going to be able to beat Bolivia, because I believe that they will beat Bolivia. So that they're my dark horse.
I mean, they could probably even beat the U.S. too if it gets like if they allow them to play the way that Panama likes to play, which is like back and forth.
They eliminated them out of the past Gold Cup. Yes, it was a US B team, but it was also Panama was also missing a couple of starters due to injury that they have now. So it's gonna be a closer game than the US men's national team puts it out to be.
Now, on that note, I want to talk about my favorites to win. I have Argentina. I mean, how can I not? They recently won the World Cup. They're still one of the best teams in the world. You still have Messi. When you have Messi, you're one of the favorites. Not trying to glaze or anything, but it's just the truth. Like, I mean, there's no denying that he's one of the greatest players to ever play the sport. And when you have that at your disposal, and yeah, he's a little older. He is 36, but he's been performing well in the matches he's had with the MLS. I know he's been like battling with injury here and there, but nonetheless, like he's gonna make a difference for you. He'll set you up for a nice pass. He will take a few players on. He will create something out of nothing. So definitely, you always have to watch out for Argentina, especially with the supporting cast that they do have. When you have Angel Di Maria, you have Julian Alvarez, McAllister, Enzo Fernandez. We all know that. For example, for Enzo Fernandez, like at Chelsea, things were kind of rocky this season, but when they put on that Albiceleste jersey, they are just a completely different squad of players. They feel more alive, they feel more at home, and I think they're definitely a team to. They can definitely do a bicampeonato in the Copa America. I wouldn't knock that past them, and I think they're going to look for that because they want to create history. They want to be known as one of the best Argentina teams to ever play in their history. So. For my disappointment, I have CONCACAF in general. So not a specific team. I think we praise ourselves a little too high, but we always have to like think about the competition that we're constantly facing up against. I mean, when your friendlies are against like Uzbekistan and Australia and Ghana, like you're not growing, as a federation for the Mexico Federation. And then same thing for the States when you're not playing. Like you see now that we're put up against the wall against serious teams, serious contenders like Colombia, Uruguay, Brazil, and they're just smacking us around like as if we're like kids pretty much. And I think CONCACAF in general, they're just like I said, they just think so highly of themselves. I think we're going to be in for a real rude awakening, the whole federation in general, because we even see with the Canadians men's national team, they just recently hired Jesse Marsh. First game for Jesse Marsh was against the Netherlands, and they got smacked up 4-0 against the Netherlands. And to be fair, I understand that it's the Netherlands. They're one of the best teams, throughout history, and they have an incredible squad as well. I know they just tied against France today, so that's, I guess, kind of, I wouldn't say it evens it out, but doesn't make it look as bad going into the Copa America. But, there's not a team that gives me confidence that they're going to do anything past quarters. I think quarters is as high as we'll go if we get out the group stage for Mexico, US, Costa Rica, Jamaica. Like there's always for Canada, there's a possibility of making it out the group, but once you get there, you're facing up an even tougher opponent, and it's just the CONMEBOL opponents are just way greater than what I think most of CONCACAF are going to be expecting. And then for my dark horse, I have Colombia. I mean, we saw what they did to the States. They have a very interesting squad. I think their qualifiers are doing pretty well. They're definitely like top 4, top 5, I believe. They have a solid team. I think individually, it's not the best Colombia squad that we've seen. I think back in 2014, they had a lot more individual talent. But now I think as a whole, they look a lot better. We saw that against the States, and we've been seeing that throughout CONMEBOL qualifiers. And I think they're going to definitely make some noise in this Copa America, so definitely watch out for them. But that kind of wraps up everything. We talked about Selección Mexicana. We talked about the Copa America, our favorites, and all that. Make sure to follow Charla Football. Follow us on our socials as well, our personal socials. I'll make sure to put that in the links down below. And make sure to follow Azteca Zone because, like I said, that's a brand new partnership. If you're really into Selección Mexicana talk, if you're really into the Liga, not Liga MX, but just the Mexican national team talk, that's going to be your place to look at everything. We're doing collaborations with them, so all of our talk is going to go on there too. So just be aware for anything that comes up, like giveaways and partnerships and all that stuff, because there's a lot of hot things coming in soon. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Jonathan.